Well, good morning everyone. Welcome to this week's news video from your favourite island in the Atlantic, Lanzarote. We've got loads to talk about this week, but don't forget to stay tuned until the end when I'll be sharing the 3 things I would be doing next week if I were you and you were on the island. And they're crackers this week, so stay tuned to the end for those. But in the meantime, we're going to talk about the most recent eruptions, volcanic eruptions in Lanzarote. And it wasn't Timanfaya, in case you think it was. We're going to discuss how long immigrants spend here. These are the immigrants that come over on the small boats from Africa. And we're going to talk about the lost tourists in Tenesar, which is the lost village, and lots more, including a new entry system for Cueva de los Verdes. So let's crack on with the news, and thanks for watching. I mentioned we're going to talk about the most recent eruptions on the island. Now, a lot of people think that the big eruptions that happened at Timanfaya in 1730 to 1736 were the most recent. They weren't. Almost 100 years later, in 1824, there were a series of 3 eruptions that took place from July to October of that year. You might have noticed I said 1824. Well, that makes it the 200th anniversary of that. And next month in October, we'll be celebrating 200 years since the last volcanic eruption here. That series happened, as I say, from July to October 1824. The first volcano that erupted was at, he says, looking at his list, Tau on the 31st of July. The second was on the 28th of September, which was a completely new volcano. And the third was on the 16th of October at Tinguaton. And contemporary accounts talk about a strong smell of sulphur across the island, the earth shaking regularly, plumes of fire coming out of these volcanoes. So it must have been a very scary time, but nobody was killed. The lava here, the type of lava, is very slow flowing. So touch wood, so far nobody's been killed by volcanic eruptions here. So those were the most recent eruptions, and as I say, next month we will be celebrating 200 years since Lanzarote had a volcanic eruption. Now, Marciano Acuna, who is the Minister of Social Welfare in Lanzarote, put a press release out and spoke at length on television, on local radio this week, explaining that the immigrants that come over in boats from Africa at this time of year, and they always come over at this time of year when the winds in the Atlantic drop, when the trade winds die down, and we get a bit of an influx of them in September. He explained to us that the vast majority of those people only spend 24 hours on Lanzarote. And in fact, even the ones that require a DNA test to make sure that they are indeed families of people that some of them suggest they are, will only stay for around 48 hours. So, you know, I'm concerned, and I know that some readers and viewers are concerned when they believe, after reading press about lots of immigrants arriving here, that the island is overrun with people. I mean, it is, but they're legally here. The people are not staying here. They're not kind of on the island and spending a lot of time here. After that initial processing period here in Lanzarote to make sure that they're healthy and they're okay, they are treated with dignity and respect, but they are then sent on to processing centres, either in Las Palmas in Gran Canaria or to the mainland of Spain, where their asylum situation is reviewed and a decision is made about what their future is going to be. So the bottom line is that very few, almost none of the immigrants arriving in Lanzarote within 24 or 48 hours are still on this island. Now, if you're out and about in Puerto del Carmen at the moment, you'll probably notice that there are lots of people around doing work on the palm trees there, and they're being trimmed, they're being treated against various pests that can attack Canarian palms particularly. They are a type of weevil and also a type of fungus. You'll see a kind of red paint going onto them, which is something to stop these pests getting into the the centre of the tree. It's looking fantastic at the moment if you walk down the strip in Puerto del Carmen, and TIAS are doing that good work on all of the palms throughout the municipality, so that will include the town of TIAS as well. Interesting this week that the Canarian government have announced a raft of subsidies available to people who want to make feature films or TV series based on the islands. The Canaries are absolutely perfect for filmmaking because it's almost impossible for play to be stopped by rain. We just don't have very much rain here. But more importantly, the quality of the light is absolutely fantastic. And it was why Los Angeles in California became the mecca of Hollywood in the 1900s, purely because that light was so good. Well, they don't have it anymore, but we certainly do here in the Canaries. So expect to see some more feature films or TV series being filmed here on the islands over the next year or so. Saturday this week is the big swim from Lanzarote to La Graciosa. There are 483 participants involved in that, and we wish them all luck. Both Julie and I have done that event several times over the years, and it's great fun and a fantastic party atmosphere. If you're around on Saturday this week, then do consider popping over to La Graciosa just to join in at the party over there, where there's a massive celebration before the swimmers set off, and then another one when they all arrive back, and there's live music and paella and all kinds of good stuff. Now, at this time of year, we have our supermoon, which creates what are called the Pinot tides, and these are extremely high and extremely low tides because of the proximity of the moon to the Earth. And we had an extraordinary situation this week where at low tide, Charco San Ginés, the lagoon in the centre of Arrecife, had absolutely no water in it. It was described as sin agua, and literally it was just like a salt flat. And then at the corresponding high tide a few hours later, it actually overflowed and flooded the streets around it in Arrecife. And for the last couple of weeks, CACT, who are the organisation that runs the major attractions here in Lanzarote, have been trialling a new entry system into Cueva de los Verdes. And if you've been there in the last couple of years, you'll know that the process used to be that you'd drive in, you'd queue in the road to get a space in the car park. Once you'd got the car park, you'd then have to go and queue to go and buy your ticket. And then once you had your ticket, you'd often have to queue to be allowed entry because only 200 people are allowed within the caves at any one time. The new system that was trialled was required people to pre-book their tickets online, where they would be given a time slot to arrive, and 15 minutes before their due arrival time, they were able to go straight into the car park, take their ticket and walk straight into the caves. So it all worked beautifully, and that system is now going to be rolled out to the other attractions. I believe Jardín de Cactus, the Cactus Gardens, is the next one that they will be doing, and that's a good thing. I drove past there this week and there was a massive queue of people waiting to get in. Inevitably, Montañas del Fuego, the Timanfaya mountains, will also be part of this new pre-booking system, and it should work much better and reduce those queues going into all of those attractions in the near future. I said we talk about the lost tourists in the lost village, and I will come back to that in a moment, but if you're enjoying this video, please give us a like. If you haven't already subscribed to our channel, we'd be so grateful if you would do so. And just a reminder that I read every single comment that's posted, so if you've got a question or a query or any feedback you want to give us, please leave a comment below. If you have a question, I will always do my very best to reply to it. Now let's talk about those lost tourists. It just made me chuckle really on a number of levels. If you don't know it, Tenesar is the small village just off the coast of Tinajo. And for years we have always called it, we locals I mean, have always called it kind of the lost village. Because certainly 20 years ago when we first arrived on the island, there was hardly anybody living there. Everyone had moved up from the little fishing village on the coast into Tinajo itself. That's changed a bit over recent years as people have bought the properties down there and started to restore them. But the story this week that made me chuckle was that two people got lost close to the lost village, and they were out hiking apparently when darkness fell, and because it was dark and they hadn't brought any torches, they couldn't find their way back from wherever they were hiking to the road and their car. So they had to call the emergency services, who came out, located them and sorted them out. I just can't get my head over why anyone would be out walking in the dark. And just so you know, you can Google the time the sun goes down anywhere you are in the world. So a pretty poor planning, I think, was the culprit in this case. I love this story about the project that has been put together by the Cabildo, and they're putting some decent funds into it to try and break what they describe as the digital divide. And the idea behind it is that older people, elderly people, who are struggling to understand how to use the internet and online banking and book tickets for Cueva de los Verdes, etc., will be able to attend classes where they will be shown, presumably by younger people, how to operate computers and access the internet and use their mobile phones to book tickets and pay for things in shops and so on. So I think it's a good move. It's a relatively short-term thing, but hopefully people will be able to go along and learn how to do things that pretty much are vital in this day and age. I also like the story about the Ipredino staff who did a beach clean at Orsula last weekend. Ipredino are one of the unicorns of the Canary Islands, if you like. They're a big organisation, 6,000 staff, totally Canarian owned, and they have a real focus on using as much as possible Canarian product in their supermarkets. They have a charity, a foundation called Superdino, and Superdino encourages their staff on all of the islands to go and do good works. And this is the most recent in a long line of good works that the team from the Superdino Foundation have done. So well done to them. And finally, but don't forget to stay tuned for the 3 things I would do if I were here next week. There is the first running of a big new cycling event on the island this weekend, Saturday and Sunday. It's called Vuelta de Lanzarote, and it's, as the name suggests, it's a circuit of the island that follows, to some extent, the Ironman bike route, but not all of it. And it takes place over 2 days, both Saturday and Sunday. On Saturday, the cyclists set off from La Santa. They go up to Teguise, through Los Valles, Aria, Mirador del Rio, down to Arrieta, along the coast to Costa Teguise, to Arrecife, and they'll finally finish up in Puerto del Carmen. That's 115 kilometres. The next day, on the Sunday, they'll do 74 kilometres. They'll go from Puerto del Carmen to Conil, La Somada, Femes, Playa Blanca, and then back round through the Fire Mountains to finish where they started at Club La Santa. So that's a new event. There are going to be road closures, so if you're moving around the island this Saturday and Sunday, have a look at our website, lanzaroteinformation.co.uk. If you go to Brief News, I've listed all of the road closures and the times they're closed on Saturday and Sunday. So that's a wrap for the news, and now, as promised, I'm going to talk about the 3 things I would do, or I would suggest you do, if you're on the island next week. And the first one is to get involved in the Costa Teguise Fiesta, which is taking place currently and goes on for another week or so. But this Sunday, the 29th of September, looks like a really interesting day to me. It all kicks off with a tortilla contest, which starts at 12 o'clock. And I love a decent tortilla, so it'll be really interesting to see what kind of offerings are being made there. And that's followed, and I think this is a beautiful piece of timing, at 1 o'clock by a wine tasting. So tortilla and wine, heaven. Those two both take place at the Civic Centre, as does the third, but that's quite a bit later. So after your tortilla and your wine, you may want to take a siesta and then go back to the Civic Centre for 8 o'clock, where there is an event called, and I forgive the poor English in this, but this is what it's called, Costa Teguise Got Talent. And local musicians and singers and would-be karaoke artists will all have a chance to get on stage and strut their stuff, and I think that could be quite fun. That's at 8 o'clock, also at the Civic Centre. For those of you who don't know where the Civic Centre is, they're those kind of new volcanic rock buildings on the main roundabout as you come into Costa Teguise, near the International School, which is on the little dual carriageway there. So I would do that on Sunday. I'd go and join in on the Costa Teguise Fiesta. Next up, on the 3rd of October, there is an event called, and I think this is such a brilliant name, Breaking Bach. And Bach as in B-A-C-H, the genius composer. And this takes place at the Teatro El Salinero in Arrecife, which is the main theatre in Arrecife. It's only €5 to get in, and it features a whole load of really top-class Canarian musicians from all over the islands performing various Bach pieces. But I gather there's some quite off-the-wall stuff as well. There's a section called Bach versus Artificial Intelligence, so it'll be interesting to see what that is. So that's on Thursday, the 3rd of October at 8 o'clock in the main teatro in Arrecife. And finally, next Saturday, the 5th of October, is the first of the paid concerts that are part of Arrecife en Vivo. So for those of you who don't know, Arrecife en Vivo is a series of completely free concerts that take place walking around the capital. So you'll go from venue to venue with the crowd and see concerts and musicians performing. Those are all free, and they take place on 4 successive weekends. But on 2 of the weekends, there is also a paid concert with some quite big stars on them. And the ones next Saturday include Fu Manchu, Bad Manners, do you remember them? Buster Blood Vessel, and John Doe. And those tickets, I believe, are 35 or 45 euros. The concert starts at 6 o'clock on Saturday. So just search for either Arrecife en Vivo or Arrecife en Vivo on Fire, because that's the name of that concert. So those are the 3 things that I would do next week, and I may be doing some of them. So if you're going along, probably see you there. Hope you've enjoyed this week's news. We really, really appreciate every single view we get of our videos. So thank you from the bottom of our hearts once again. And I hope you'll tune in next week when we'll be doing the same all over again. Bye for now.